Welcome back to the podcast. This week, after Matt receives some unfounded resistance from Bike Shop, the team discusses why we feel it is so important that we are an independent and impartial bike fit studio, especially when it comes to giving advice to riders when they are buying a new bike. Would it surprise you to hear that bike fitters and bike shops often find it hard to help each other out or see eye to eye? And what does this mean for you as a consumer? Who should you trust? Perhaps it's time to refresh our emotional intelligence. Listen on to find out how you can make the best bike buying decisions for you and if you should be demanding more from your local bike shop.
Welcome to Cycling Demystified, brought to you by Foundation Bike Fit and Frequency Cycle Works, the podcast where we help you take your cycling to the next level by sharing the knowledge from experienced bike fitters, mechanics, and the hidden players within the bike industry.
If you were about to walk into a restaurant and the door had one of those hygiene certificates on it and it was 3 out of a possible 5, you'd be like, ah.
But people put those stickers up.
They put them up when there's they've got 2.
Yeah, it's like, come to this really unhygienic place.
But that's also the way that you know that a takeaway is going to be really good. If it's got more than 3 stars, you're like, no, it's not going to be good.
They should have a rating like this for bike shops.
What a segue. You are absolutely
right. You should have a
right.
rating for bike shops for competence.
Who would be responsible, aside from you,
Me.
mainly?
The competence ombudsman.
The competence ombudsman / oracle.
Is there any particular reason why you would have brought that up, Matt?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that, because there is actually a particular reason, and it is something that I get all too often, a bit too often, for my levels of sanity, to be honest. You know, I lost all my hair years ago, so I've none of that to pull out anymore.
Your beard's going to fall out.
My beard's going to fall out. It's just, yeah. So, no, the reason I brought this up is, I think we talked about this before, but how hard is it to buy a bike in 2023, 2024, right?
Well, if you can find one in stock, but
yeah, so but this is a loaded question, sorry to cut you off. The physical purchasing of the bike, still relatively easy, right? You can click a button, 2 weeks later it'll show up in a box, whatever.
Yeah.
But buying a bike through a shop, right, it's supposed to make it easier, because you're supposed to be able to talk to a human, interact, get the bike you want, right? The bike you need as well as the bike you want. Mm-hmm. Apparently that's quite difficult. And the reason I'm sort of interested to kind of bring this up now is we've had a couple of instances where, we've had customers come through the Fit Studio, they want that knowledge, they want to know what bike is going to suit them best in terms of their body shape, their kind of riding goals, what they want to do with their bike, yada, 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 all that kind of stuff. And they've gone to the trouble of seeking out this information, investing in themselves, investing in kind of their sport and their health to get this information. And then, you'd think once you have that information, then it's plain sailing, here on in. It's all,
you would think.
It's all, it's all sunshine and rainbows. Turns out it's not. So you walk into a shop armed with all this information. Now I'm using the term shop as a gross generalisation here. And there are good bike shops out there, 100%, that want the best for their customers. They want to provide good service. They want people to be happy on their bikes. But you have this information. You wander into your local bike shop, wherever, whoever that might be, and you're like, so I've gone through a bike fit. This is the bike I want to buy. It looks like you have it in stock. I need some parts changing. Can you help me? I've got a drawing of my position, so that this is the stem I need, this is the amount of space I need, this is the crank length I need this seat post, this saddle. I can tell you to the millimetre where it needs to go. I'm making your life really easy here. All you have to do is take my money and build the bike. Apparently that's really difficult. And I'll tell you for why. Because people have opinions, and they can't keep their opinions to themselves. But what are these opinions based on? And this is kind of where, my sort of blood pressure starts to rise a little bit. It's kind of like, everyone has an opinion. Not everyone is entitled to your opinion, and you are not entitled to give your opinion to everyone if it's not asked. You wouldn't make an unsolicited comment to someone on the tube, would you? So why do people feel the need to, especially some certain individuals that work in bike shops, why do people feel the need to make unsolicited comments about the way they think you should ride a bike, what they think you need, based on literally just looking you up and down and go, oh yeah, 5'11", you're a 56, you aren't you? Yeah. You want to do a triathlon? Yeah, you need a race bike. Yeah, because endurance bikes are boring. Yeah.
Fashion, isn't it?
Fashion, innit? So let's unpack that. I want to unpack that.
I think we could go into a completely different podcast on that. But just going back to what you were saying about people giving opinions in bike shops, our job is to make it as easy as possible for bike shops to sell a bike, to get people to hand over their cash, because and to build it as well. Like this, you got an email from a mechanic. It wasn't even the guy in the shop. It was a mechanic who was voicing their opinion that supposedly what we'd done was incorrect, based on based on what?
Based on what we don't know.
But even for them, we send you as you said, a drawing which has got everything mapped out on it. You just literally have to look at the drawing and build it. There's no kind of questioning about it, and the customer has already kind of agreed on this. There's an agreement that has been made, and this is their kind of agreed position. So why would you kind of wade in with your opinion?
But that's a really good point as well, is that the position has been agreed upon. It has not been prescribed.
Yeah.
Right? This has been a collaborative process whereby fitter and rider have worked together to come to an agreement about, this is, objectively, your movement looks good, and you're giving me feedback that it feels comfortable and efficient.
Yeah, but so maybe it just goes back to there's a couple of things here. So one is it's down to a certain individual, but this kind of case kind of happens so often to us that it's probably greater than just individual opinion, and I think it's more down to a legacy or culture that's kind of pervading through the cycling culture, and so people get stuck on kind of old ideas. It's they've had these ideas for a certain amount of time, they're holding on to them, and if they encounter something that challenges that idea, then it's really difficult for them not to lash out. It seems there's
almost like a personal attack on their ideology.
I guess what's surprising is just how much this happens, but also to the severity of people being no, I will not sell you this bike because I think it's wrong, based on not very much information.
Yeah, based on what?
But I mean, just going into more detail about this particular case, it was someone voicing their opinion that they're a similar height to the customer.
Not even a similar height, similar body proportions. I'm also tall with long legs and a short torso.
Okay.
Congrats.
Yeah. Are you the same as the next person who's a similar body proportion to you?
Did he look at the customer's arse and say, hey, it's like I'm looking in the mirror? Because how is he going to know?
There's no way of knowing.
Of course there's no way of knowing.
You can be exactly the same proportions, exactly the same height as your mate sat next to you, and, one of you might have had an ACL reconstruction or have half your hamstring missing. Is your body position going to be the same? No. Yeah.
So it's just holding on to old beliefs, I guess. But quite often, if you look a little bit deeper into this, then this lashing out, this reaction, this challenge is just people. I don't know. I reckon people just have other stuff going on in their lives that they haven't worked out yet, and so this kind of manifests in their work.
Needing to be right.
Yeah. Needing to be.
There's always something going on beneath the surface.
Yeah.
But this is it. It's you've had this. I've had this. I'm sure there are other fitters that have this
all the time. All the time.
And this is the thing. It's the whole point of being independent and impartial is that we don't care what bikes people buy, as long as they are making an informed decision that is in their own best interests, based on the work that we've done and the position that's kind of been agreed upon, right? So I care whether people buy X bike, Y bike, or Z bike. Doesn't make any difference
This
to me.
individual obviously does care about whether they buy one bike or another bike, and my
It would
guess
seem
would
so.
be, would it be something to do with the price?
Price,
Possibly.
stock availability.
Familiarity with that particular model of bike over another model of bike. You know,
There's so many things to kind of go on.
but to quite obviously pretend that they know better that's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like, the bike fitters have sent this data, and it's like, I'm not sure about this. Why don't I just get in touch with them, and why don't I speak direct to them? It's not like you can't pick up the phone and go,
Just want to check.
Can you
can
you
you
explain
run me
to
through
me a
this?
little bit why you've done, or why you've recommended this? Because I thought X, Y, and Z, and then you guys can be like, well, you know, A, B, and C.
And the thing is as well is that we don't know everything.
Yeah.
The more we know, the more we realise we don't know.
But that's the key to knowledge.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
it's like you never stop learning. And if you ever get to a point where you think, I know enough, I'll just stop now.
You completed it, mate.
So, yeah.
I've completed life.
New game plus now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Can I have my next life, please?
Well, that's it though, isn't
Just
it? It's like it's classic Dunning-Kruger effect. It's like, you know, the
But why does it happen
competence
so
versus
often?
competence scale.
Like, I'm completely assuming the gender of this individual, and I'm saying that he's a man.
That would be an assumption.
Would be
but
an
one
assumption,
that we're
but-
probably going to make.
Exactly.
I think he did use the word he
Yeah.
in the email.
Maybe.
But even that is maybe irrelevant. At the end of the day, it's somebody trying to make themselves seem important to a customer because they're trying to instill a confidence in the customer that you're spending your money in the right place.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to be really controversial here and say that this happens to women more. And I really hope that this
As in
wasn't,
women being the customer.
Yeah, women.
Yeah.
So this customer of ours is a woman,
Yeah.
and she's been, advised by probably a male mechanic. But this is not the right way for her to go.
This is also going to be her first bike, am I right?
Yeah, her first road bike.
Road bike.
So she's in a pretty vulnerable kind of position in terms of knowledge.
Yeah.
Although she came to us first so that we could give her as much knowledge as we could. But this just kind of pervades. Like, even through all my years in the bike industry, every time we've had even a female member of staff, it's so difficult in that kind of bike shop environment to really kind of feel like they're treated on an equal par, or like they have the same voice, or there's a certain way that people talk about it. And I just feel like where that kind of culture still pervades when you go. We hear it all the time. Like, people are kind of nervous going into bike shops when they're female because they think they're just going to get talked down to. And it's like, why can't we change this?
Yeah, they do all too often. And like, the bike industry is so good at shooting itself in the foot.
Yeah.
Like, why? It just doesn't need to be that way. But why does it continue to be that way?
Because people are, I'll be controversial, people are just stupid.
Well, yeah.
On the whole, people who work in the bike industry there are too many roles where people have just walked into a role from another industry or another thing, or not particularly qualified in a particular thing, and it's just like, I do this now. And like, there's a certain level of knowledge that is quite specialist.
I don't even think it's like knowledge, that you can teach anyone knowledge.
You can teach them, but they have to be willing to learn.
When I first started, I knew nothing about bikes at all. And I just read a ton of stuff and went out and made all the mistakes for myself. It's emotional intelligence. That's all this boils down to. Yep. Emotional intelligence and, unfortunately, I'm going to use this word, misogyny. It is. It's just like,
I prefer the term chauvinistic, but...
Well, chauvinistic, misogynistic, just lack of...
arrogance as well.
Arrogance, whatever you want to call it. And this is why, the industry in general, is always going to be kind of struggling, because
do they keep making assumptions?
They keep making the assumptions, the same mistakes over and over again, and it turns people off. Yeah. And people that might want to get into the sport and might actually be, a very good lifelong customer for a particular shop or whatever, like the industry in general, it turns them off, and then they go and do something else.
Yeah.
Because
Like running.
yeah, exactly. You know,
It's the same symptom in that it's always been, is the you know how I feel about marketers,
yeah,
right? The marketers always get to make the first decision, and then the engineers, the actual experts, are the last in the chain in all these kinds of industries. And that's why things are as they are, because it's all about how do we get people to buy our product over somebody else's product first. So with women, particularly focusing on women's stuff in the bike industry, it's always the first most basic mistake is, oh, well, we'll just make it this colour, and that'll be the women's range. We'll just make it pink or green or whatever, you know. And then they move over to women's saddles, and it's like women's specific stuff, and it's like, well, it's not. There isn't such a thing. It's just specific to individuals, and you just have to cover bases, you know.
yeah. But I think as well, it's like having having the humility to, like, if you don't know something, just ask.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a mechanic and you've been given a drawing and you're questioning, like, and you want to know, not even questioning it, you just want to know, like, how has this been arrived at, you know? Like, just pick up the phone, send an email, ask. Like,
But you're asking people to pick up the phone. People don't do that anymore.
it's true.
What was it? I was watching something the other day where somebody was like, you know, the punchline was like, the least used app on my phone is the phone.
Yeah. But then, you know, and that goes into the whole thing of like hiding behind emails and that anonymity that you get through digital communication and blah 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 blah. But also, I think this is just a general kind of problem with like bike fitting, bike fitting culture. Bike fitting is just not understood, or a modern form of bike fitting, the evolution of bike fitting, where we're at now as bike fitters, and how we can help people and get people to understand their positions, just not understood within bike shops. It's become maybe a bit too specialist, or maybe the you know, culture still pervades that, you know, bike fitting is just this kind of other add-on that is used to sell a bike, you know, or buy a bike, get a free bike fit with it. But it's just a case of, just put your saddle up and down and this and this and this and this. But there's so much more to it. There's like, you know, there's a reason why we spend 4 hours with someone during a fit, because it takes that long to really get to know someone, to understand them, understand their needs, their goals, their desires, what do they want to do on this bike. This bike becomes their vehicle for achieving something very special to them. But yeah, all of that, and I just don't think like the wider bike industry really appreciates kind of what bike fitters do, and how long and how much effort has gone into producing what we produced for them to make it easier for them.
Yeah. Here's a perfect scenario. It's like, you are professional bike fitters, right? You do it day in, day out. You have a lot of data. When is the last time a bike manufacturer has called you up and said, can we look at your data? We're designing bikes. Can we see your data? Like, where are they getting their data from? Where are they making the decisions? Who's making the decisions, and based on what data?
Do you want a facetious answer?
Start with a facetious one.
Retool.
Resort was designed specifically for that purpose.
Yeah.
It was designed.
Is it like connected to the internet?
Yeah, like Retool aggregates every single kind of fit that a Retool fitter has done, like worldwide.
But how do you guarantee that the fitter has any level of fitting knowledge?
Wow, there you go.
Because as we all know, because I've seen those systems sitting in the back of bike shops. And I know full well, working in those shops or just knowing the people that work there, that there is nobody in that room who understands how to fit a bike, right? So what have they? You know, I'm sure the people who designed the system have said, well, look, the point is that we're taking the guesswork out of it. We've designed these systems. You know, like it's like somebody using
the tool is only as good as its operator.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like give somebody an Allen key who's never used one before and watch them round off all the bolts on their bike. because nobody ever taught them how to
That
use.
hasn't been using an Allen key before. Is that the only criteria for rounding bolts off on your bike?
Well, no, I mean even somebody who you've like a literal. I mean I've
Using a 4mm Allen key in a T25. It won't go in.
You just got to knock it with a hammer. That's the secret. But I've tried to teach people how to use tools and explain to and you don't know because you don't know you don't feel what they feel when they start using a tool. You can't tell them.
Not everyone's elbow is calibrated to 5
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like not everyone knows that you don't start turning before you know that the tool is engaged properly, right? There's very simple things that people would learn if they actually listened, actually paid attention. But it's like that, it's the tool is only as good as the person using it.
Yeah, so how good's the data?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
So the data
So,
is trash.
Yeah, if
effectively.
you're putting like a marker on a certain landmark on
Yeah.
your body and it's out by,
Just 2 millimeters.
2 millimeters,
Yeah.
usually more. But if you're putting like a marker out by like a millimeter or two,
Yeah.
that skews everything.
Yeah.
So it's, it just, you
To
can't-
clarify, you're talking about the little sticker, the little
little
white
stickers.
markers
Yeah,
that you put so
exactly.
that on the camera, like the system can kind of see, okay, that's where the knee joint is and that's where the ankle joint is and that's where the hip
So the
joint.
data's only as good as
The people
the
inputting the
accuracy.
data.
Yeah, people inputting
Yeah.
the data, i.e. putting the markers
Yeah.
on that individual.
Yeah. And
I'm
also,
sure Retail were kind of cognizant of that. I mean,
Yeah.
they're clever guys, but also it does beg the question. Yeah, like how good is that collection of data
Yeah,
and
well,
how in
like-
aggregating all that data? Is it when does it become useful? When
Well,
is
you
it
said
useful?
that you're sure that they're clever guys. I'm sure that the guy who invented the Allen key, Mr. Allen, is also a clever guy or was a clever guy. But that doesn't mean, people who design cars can be good engineers, but they can't control the person operating the thing to not go wrapping around a tree, right? It's just the user
It's a
at the
tool
end
to
of the
do a
day.
job.
It's a tool to do a
Yeah.
job, and there's something else. There's something else a bit insidious that affects how people use these systems as well. Because if you already have a predisposed notion of what you think is right for somebody, based on your limited knowledge, all right, and your lack of understanding.
And just to clarify, everyone has a limited knowledge.
Exactly, right?
And a certain
So
lack of understanding.
let's say I'm in a scenario where I've got a big old white space luxury bike shop, which I'd like to have, but I don't. Customer
that,
comes in. Nah, I don't want that.
You don't want a
I
bike
want
shop.
dirty. So customer comes in and I'm like, oh, you're looking for a bike. Great, let's get you on the retool system, right? And then in the corner of my eye, I'm looking over at the Specialized tarmac, or I don't know, name another bike.
Whatever it is.
Right? Whatever it is, with the big price tag on it. And I'm like, if I can just like lean this fit towards that bike, that's what they'll ultimately so I'm, whether consciously or unconsciously, I can skew the data so that I can shoehorn them onto a bike that isn't actually appropriate for them.
Yeah, that's definitely one scenario. And it just goes back, or what you just summarised just goes back to what we were talking about. Mechanic friend earlier who
I hope they're listening.
Has a preconceived notion of what is correct.
Come at me, bro.
Yeah,
Fight.
yeah, and what their preconceived notion of what someone should be riding, someone who looks a certain way should be kind of doing.
Yeah.
And the number one rule of bike fitting that we're taught straight away is like there are no rules in bike fitting because everyone's an individual.
Don't make a judgment based on your initial perception of that person when you see them. We've all had it. I've walked into when I was younger, and I would walk into a bike shop, and then the people in there are like, they look you up and down. They go, oh well, you're about this height, so this will be the bike size that you.
You're 56, mate.
Yeah,
Easy.
58, I was told.
Really?
Yeah, based on and I'm like, that's 3 sizes too big.
It's a bit like going to Tesco's, right? And then you're at the checkout, and like the cashier is just critiquing your entire basket.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I wouldn't eat that, mate. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, those taste disgusting. Well, I actually quite like sausages, but wouldn't do that, mate. And like you wouldn't stand
Fat
for that,
content
mate.
in that. Ooh,
Yeah.
looking a little podgy there.
Yeah.
This
Like,
basket is a fast ticket to a festival of diabetic death. Don't do that, mate. Get yourself some fruit and veg. Yeah,
It's
but
like at
it's
the
so
end they actually
subjective,
like
though,
just
isn't it?
drop apples and bananas
Yeah,
in your
exactly.
basket.
But yeah, it's so subjective, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Like once you kind of start seeing like patterns, and you think, oh, this goes this way, you'll just be blindsided by something you've never seen before, and that's the beauty of it.
So,
So,
what's
you know,
the,
what do you
what's,
do?
what's the solution then? Where are we
Solution
going
is
to
for
be?
them to start listening to you guys.
Well, not necessarily, right? I mean, yes, but not necessarily, right? The solution is it's bigger than just like us, right? It has to be a complete shift in how the bike industry operates. I know we keep saying this, it's never going to happen, but it has to be a more collaborative and communicative dialogue, if you like, between the people actually selling the stuff, the people designing the stuff, and people like us who are fitting it.
Yeah.
And
It becomes a journey.
exactly,
rather
but with
than-
lots of different kind of like, you know, parts of the process. It's not just like, yeah, this is like a one-stop kind of, this is the solution
This is
to
where
all
it comes.
of the
This is where it
problems.
comes down to cost, though, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
like
and the
people
thing,
are
they
looking
don't make
for
money.
no people. People are looking for a single. They just want you to give them a single number. It's like, I want to buy.
Efficiency.
I want to buy a bike. That's how much it's going to cost you, and there's no extras. There's no hidden like blah blah blah
Exactly.
blah. You know, but and you know what I'd like to see is this scenario in here, in a bike shop, or connected to a bike shop or next door or whatever. But then that gets to the point where maybe that's not the right thing to do because it's not independent if you're connected
Exactly.
to the
Mhm.
people
Connected to the
selling
shop.
the thing.
And this is why it needs to be like a cross like collaboration
Yeah.
of multiple different kind of areas of the industry, rather than it can being completely separate. But
So
it's
one of the
never going to happen
solutions-
because it's too expensive.
Of course. But one of the solutions is people like you guys educating the industry.
But people don't want to know
They don't want to hear it.
because their egos get bruised.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. It's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's like, yeah, here's a potential solution, even just without like the cost element to it. Just like, you know, people becoming like more interested in it, more knowledgeable about it. A and one, people don't care. B and two, people don't want their egos bruised. C and three, people know it all anyway.
Yeah.
So why would I bother? Like,
It's the education needs to be in sales and marketing in the industry because that's where everything comes back to that. The problem always stems from people want your money. They want to sell you a particular thing. They want to sell you a particular brand, particular model of something because that's currently the thing that they can offload.
and that's
For the
all that
lowest
stuff
cost.
is fine. Hear me out. All that stuff is fine. Yes, we need, like, the bike industry needs to sell bikes. It needs to sell product, and it needs to, like, you know, make a profit to keep itself sustainable. But if you focus too much on that as it's kind of like the sole entity, right? The sole kind of goal is profit, right? The way kind of industries become more sustainable is to think about service first, and then if you're offering good service, it will come. It takes time, and it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a lot of initial capital to kind of like ride out that process.
This is
But
where it doesn't
that's
make
where
sense.
it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And if you look at our friends at the Northern Ireland distributor for Shimano, for instance, then they've based their whole model on making like a 0.5 to 1% margin on a warehouse that was probably the size of the town I grew up in.
Yeah.
And it's gone pop and the bottom's fallen out the barrel because it's not a service-based approach. Like, as soon as you stop kind of focusing on service and you're solely focused on price, then it's a ticking time bomb, and it's only going to be a matter of time before the thing goes boom.
When we go back to our friendly bike shop mechanic, right? Why would you basically create a problem by recommending something that
Because there's a solution to the problem that's been created. I've got a solution. I'm going to create a problem for it.
But
I'm the knight in shining armour.
He's taking on the responsibility of making the mistakes, whereas he could have left it to you. He could have said, "I'm selling you that you came in, she came in wanting this, and the bike fitters said this. Give her what they've all agreed
the
on."
ego won't let him.
But she's just going to come back to him. It's all going to come back at his feet. He's going to have to deal with it.
That's not how human brains.
That's not how the
work.
human brain
Apparently
works, though, is it? Like that's the slow part of the human brain. The
Why are
logical-
humans so stupid?
Well, yeah.
Well, it's just
You must eliminate them.
Just an
AI is coming.
emotional response. You lash out. You're only short-term thinking, and you know that there's probably something else going on. I don't know anything about this person.
There's hurt in his life.
Yeah, we don't know anything. We're basically
He doesn't know anything.
We're
either,
basing this
apparently.
on a few paragraphs and an email.
Yeah, true.
We don't know what's going on. So that's the kind of thing. But it's interesting to kind of like think about the psychology behind it and what is it that's, like where are the kind of, why are these roadblocks being kind of put in place?
Why are you throwing
industry wide?
Why are you throwing a spanner in the works when you don't need to?
Such a mechanic. But it's like, I'm going to create a problem that isn't here.
Yeah.
And this is like, this is one.
Because I want to feel.
But this is one
important.
instance. Like it happens so often.
Yeah.
So like we know nothing about this. We're just kind of speculating as well. But it's super interesting to see that it happens more often than it should.
It's regular, And the only reason why we brought it up is because it finally got to that limit of like, oh my goodness,
This is the straw. This is the straw that broke the camel's back,
Yeah.
isn't it? So, but yeah. So bike industry, be better.
Yeah. Actually, bike industry, what you need to do is go on Gillian Cork's emotional intelligence course.
Absolutely.
Contact point.
Form an orderly queue.
Yeah.
It'll be long. Gillian won't like us because there'll be so many people.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a little bit of emotional intelligence goes a long way. Ask some questions. Like talk to people. Like
Don't make assumptions.
Understand the why behind it and put yourself in other people's shoes.
And don't be afraid to educate yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to go, and don't be afraid to say to people who think that you know better than them that you don't know, but you are willing to find out.
Yeah, educate me.
Yeah.
If I don't know something, I want to know it.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly. I'll go and find the person who does know, and I'll talk to them about it.
exactly.
That's how knowledge is inseminated,
All right. My tea's gone cold, so
Time to
just
put another brew on.
My tea doesn't have any sugar in it. Sweetness.
Well, if anyone got to the end of that, well done.
Congratulations. You get a cake.
But yeah, talk to us if you have any questions at all about bikes, bike fitting, bike buying.
And talk to your shop.
And talk to your shop.
Ask more of your shop.
Yeah.
And
Send
ask,
them the link to this podcast.
no, but just generally, like ask more, like demand more,
Yeah.
like from your bike shop. Like if you don't have knowledge, ask, because that's the only way that you can make better decisions
Exactly.
is by educating yourself. And if your bike shop is unwilling to work with you, then you probably want to be spending your money somewhere else. Woohoo! Done. Okay.
If you made it to the end of this episode, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, do leave us a rating or review, as this really helps other riders find our podcast too, and motivates us to keep making more episodes. Thanks for your support, and catch you on the next one.
Suffering from numb hands, tingling toes, and any other persistent discomforts when you ride? These are all signs that your bike fit could be improved. If you're bike fit curious, get in touch with Way or Matt by emailing info@foundation.fit or finding them on Instagram @FDN_bikefit. Finally, for all your bike servicing needs, custom dream bike or hand-built wheels, go to www.frequencycycleworks.com or find me on Instagram @frequencycycleworks. Until next time, keep on spinning.